A 13-year-old girl stood quietly on a small street corner, her soft voice rising above the hum of the busy crowd, not for fame but for something far more urgent. She was singing to earn spare change, hoping to buy medicine for her mother, who was fighting cancer. Surrounded by honking cars, chilled by the biting December wind, and mostly ignored by rushing strangers, she sang on with quiet determination. Then someone stopped. A simple act that would change everything. It was a chilly Monday morning in early December in Savannah, Georgia. A crisp breeze swept through the cobblestone streets of the historic district. Horse-drawn carriages clattered past souvenir shops, and the comforting scent of cinnamon waffles drifted from a nearby cafe. At the corner of Barnard and Liberty, amidst the steady flow of passersby, a young girl stood alone against a weathered brick wall. She clutched a small microphone, plugged into a scuffed old speaker. Her name was Lily Mae Carter. 13 years old. She wore a cream-colored sweater with frayed seams and mismatched rubber boots. Her light brown hair, pulled into a tidy ponytail, sparkled with tiny drops of morning dew. Before her sat a clear plastic donation box. Inside, a few crumpled dollar bills and a scattering of coins. A handwritten sign rested in front, simple and sincere. "I sing to help my mom buy her medicine." Thank you. Lily wasn't a street performer by trade. She had no backing tracks or sound effects. But when she opened her mouth to sing, her voice floated gently through the cold air. Light and pure, like the first notes of dawn. It made people stop. Her first song that morning was "You Are My Sunshine." No soaring choruses or vocal tricks. Just honest, heartfelt words delivered with love and quiet sorrow. Some paused briefly, moved but unsure. A few tourists reached into their wallets, dropping in $1, maybe $5. Others offered only fleeting looks of sympathy before moving on. A middle-aged couple slowed as they passed, whispering to each other. "This is heartbreaking. No child should have to do this," said the woman. "I know, but did you hear her? It just broke my heart," the man replied. Lily couldn't make out every word, but she knew that look, pity mixed with doubt. Some people didn't believe her story, fewer still understood it. Her mother, Angela, had once been a devoted music teacher at the local elementary school. She loved children, adored music, and filled her classroom with joy and old folk songs. But a year ago, she collapsed mid-lesson. The diagnosis came swiftly and cruelly: stage 3 ovarian cancer. Their world collapsed. The insurance wouldn't cover all the treatment costs. Lily's father had left long ago with no money, no safety net, just love and a mountain of bills. Lily stepped up. She had once been a straight-A student with dreams of becoming a musician like her mom. But now, she went to school only part-time. The rest of her days were spent taking her mother to radiation treatments and singing on the streets during the rare moments when her mom could rest without pain. Music was no longer just a dream. It had become their only hope. That morning, as she wrapped up her second song, "Amazing Grace," a slow clap rose from behind her, measured, intentional. An elderly man stepped forward, lean and silver-haired, walking with the help of a wooden cane. He wore a worn khaki coat and a gray wool scarf, and held a ceramic coffee mug in one hand. But his gaze wasn't on the donation box. It was fixed solely on Lily. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice warm. "I'm Lily." "Sir," she replied softly. "Lily, that's a beautiful name." "I'm Walter," he said, his tone gentler now. "That song, Amazing Grace, my wife loved it. She passed from cancer 3 years ago." Lily gave a small nod. She didn't need to say a word. His sorrow was something she already carried in her own heart. Walter pulled out his wallet, took out a crisp $20 bill, and placed it gently into the donation box. "You're singing for your mother, aren't you?" Lily lowered her eyes. "Yes, sir. She needs her medicine." "This is the only way I can help." Walter didn't reply. He simply nodded, turned, and walked down the quiet street lined with golden sunlight and old houses. But that afternoon, when Lily returned to sing her final song of the day, she was taken aback. Walter was already there, waiting, with a small folding chair beside him and a warm thermos of tea placed carefully near his cane. Walter settled in. And so, on that worn street corner in Savannah, wrapped in the quiet breath of a southern winter, a young girl sang for life, while an old man sat and listened, as though trying to rediscover something he had lost long ago. The next morning, Lily returned to her usual corner just as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the canopy of ancient trees. The rooftops were painted in soft gray light, and the air held the chill of the season. She unpacked her things, set up the speaker, adjusted the microphone, then knelt to tighten the worn straps on her mismatched boots. As she stood, she saw him, Walter, Already there, he had arrived early, though she hadn't expected him. Seated on the compact folding chair he'd brought along, a silver thermos cradled in his hands and a neatly folded newspaper resting on his lap. He looked up and nodded gently, as if they'd made a quiet agreement to meet again. Lily smiled faintly and began to sing. Her song that morning was "Can't Help Falling in Love." Her voice, soft and smooth, flowed through the cold air like a ribbon, winding through the footsteps of busy strangers and the slow stirrings of the city. Some people paused for a moment, moved by her voice. A few dropped spare change or small bills into the plastic donation box, but Walter remained still the entire morning, not saying a word. He simply listened, eyes steady, nodding now and then in time with her melody. He didn't watch the money box. He didn't fidget or shift his seat. He just listened, as if every note carried weight, as if every lyric mattered. His presence was calm, quiet, and grounding, like a steady rhythm in the background of her performance. Around noon, Lily paused to take a sip of water, wiping her hands on her sleeves. Before she could sit down, Walter stood and approached her. In his hand, he held a steaming paper cup. "Peppermint tea," he said, offering it gently. "It's good for the throat." Lily took the cup with both hands, the warmth seeping into her cold fingers. She smiled up at him, touched by the simple gesture. "Thank you," she said softly. Walter nodded, then returned to his seat without another word. And just like that, a quiet bond formed between a girl fighting to save the only family she had left and a man who had already lost what he once held most dear. "It's cold this morning," Walter said softly. "Drink this. It'll warm your throat." Lily accepted the cup with both hands, small hands, roughened by the wind and chilled by the morning dew. She wasn't used to receiving kindness without strings attached. But something about Walter, the depth in his eyes, the quiet strength in his voice, made her trust him. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't think you'd come back." Walter gave a faint smile, the kind marked by sorrow, the kind only someone who's carried the weight of deep loss could offer. "You reminded me of my wife," he said. "She used to teach music too. Every morning, she'd sit by the window and play the piano. She loved this song. When she got sick, I used to wish I could take her place. But life doesn't let us choose like that." Lily sat down beside him on the stone ledge, still cradling the warm cup of tea. A light breeze tugged at the edge of her knitted dress. "I don't know what else to do," she said quietly. "Her medicine costs almost $300 a week, and there's no one left to help." Walter looked at her, a child forced to carry the burden of an adult. She was trying so hard to be strong, trying to hold her world together with little more than love and will. He understood. Not every child is given the chance to just be a child. After a long pause, he asked gently, "Have you ever recorded yourself singing?" "Singing?" Walter asked gently. Lily shook her head. "I don't have a good phone," she said quietly. "I only sing for my mom. I never thought anyone else would want to hear it." Walter nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "But your voice," he said, "deserves to be heard by more than just your mother. Sometimes the world just needs one honest song to remind it to slow down." The next day, Walter arrived with something unexpected, an old video camera, the kind that used mini DV tapes. Almost no one used them anymore, but it still worked. He set it up on a small tripod, adjusted the angle carefully, then looked at Lily. "Forget the camera," he told her softly. "Just sing like you did yesterday." Lily hesitated. She felt a little shy, unsure of what to do under the lens of a camera. But she nodded, took a breath, and began to sing, "You Raise Me Up." Her voice lifted into the late afternoon air, full and clear. As the notes drifted across the sidewalk, something shifted around her. Passers-by began to slow. An elderly woman with a cane stopped in her tracks. A young couple exchanged a quiet, emotional glance. Someone in the crowd brushed away tears. When Lily finished, she looked over at Walter, uncertain. "Was that okay?" she asked. Walter smiled, eyes warm. "You know, some sounds don't need editing. Your voice is one of them." That night, he took the tape home. He didn't know how to edit videos. He wasn't very tech-savvy. But he did know how to use Facebook. In a group he was part of, Vietnam veterans who love old songs. He uploaded the video. He wrote a simple caption, "This young girl sings to help her mom fight cancer. She reminded me of a voice I lost and a hope I thought I'd buried. Please listen." He didn't expect much, but by the next morning, the post had already been shared over 1,000 times. Comments flooded in, veterans, widows, cancer survivors, and people from all walks of life. Some had lost someone dear. Some were simply having a hard day, and others just needed something pure, something good to believe in. From that forgotten corner of Savannah, a small voice began to carry, beyond the city, beyond the state, beyond one man's quiet memory, into the hearts of thousands. The next morning, Lily stepped out of the tiny apartment she shared with her mother. She had no idea her life had already begun to change. All it took was one click. She still carried the same old microphone. She still returned to the same street corner. She sang as she always did, without expectation, unaware that the video Walter had taken. By the time Lily returned to her usual corner the next day, she had no idea the video from the day before was already going viral. In a modest second-floor apartment just a few blocks away, Walter sat hunched over his old laptop, his eyes wide in disbelief. The post, "This little girl sings to save her mother," had surpassed 15,000 shares overnight. Something about Lily's face, the honesty in her voice, not polished, not rehearsed, but raw and tender like a whispered prayer, had touched thousands. Comments poured in. "My wife used to sing this to our grandkids. I'm a retired nurse. I'll send money so this sweet girl can help her mom. She looks just like my granddaughter. I couldn't stop crying." A charity group for elderly widows in Florida even reposted the video with the caption, "If you think there's no beauty left in the world, listen to this child sing." That afternoon, just as Lily was setting up her little speaker, a woman in a leather jacket and headset approached her. She had a kind smile and a press badge around her neck. "You must be Lily Carter, right?" she asked. "I'm Mandy Pearson from WCTV News. Would you mind giving me a quick interview?" Lily glanced around hesitant, then gave a small nod. That night, during the evening news, a short 2-minute segment aired. It showed Lily singing, "You Are My Sunshine," beneath golden light, her voice drifting like a lullaby. The camera lingered on an elderly passerby, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Less than 24 hours later, Lily and her mother received a phone call that would change everything. It was from a cancer treatment center in Atlanta. "We saw your story," the coordinator said. "We have a fund for patients in need. If approved, your mother could receive the rest of her treatment, at no cost." Angela sat in stunned silence. Then, her body trembled, and she buried her face in her hands. Tears flowed freely, tears of relief, of gratitude, of release. Lily cried too, but this time not from fear or sorrow. For the first time in months, the crushing helplessness was gone. But the miracles didn't stop there. A few hours later, an email arrived. Subject line, "Scholarship offer, Miss Lily Carter." It was from the Atlanta School of Folk Arts. "Your voice reminds us why music ever mattered." The message read, "If you're willing to attend as a formal student, we are prepared to offer you a full scholarship." Lily didn't know what to say. She handed the phone to her mother. Angela read the email, smiled through her wariness, and whispered softly, "If I'm not here anymore, keep singing. Your voice can save others, not just me." In the days that followed, Lily kept returning to her corner on Barnard and Liberty. But now, she wasn't just singing to collect spare change. She was singing with hope. Each time she opened her mouth, people stopped. Some took photos. Others sat down on the curb, quietened, as if attending a miniature concert in the middle of the city. One elderly woman flew all the way from Ohio just to hear that little girl with the angel voice. Lily often sang "Amazing Grace" or "Once in My Life," songs that felt like quiet prayers whispered into the wind. Walter still came every afternoon. He brought his folding chair and a thermos of peppermint tea, always placing them beside him like sacred ritual. But he no longer brought the video camera. "They've already heard your voice," he said gently. "No, they need to see you live in it." From that weathered street corner in Savannah, what was once a fragile whisper from a girl trying to save her mother had become something much more. It had become a song people sought when they needed peace, a voice not just from the throat, but from the deepest chambers of the human soul. But time is never generous, and illness does not pause for the hopes of children. Though the treatment center in Atlanta had accepted Angela for care, and though Lily continued to sing every day like a living prayer, the disease inside her mother marched on, quiet, steady, and unrelenting. The days when Angela could rise from bed grew fewer. Her voice faded, but her eyes, when they met Lily's, were still filled with unspoken love, the kind that never weakens. One misty autumn morning, Savannah seemed to hold its breath, wrapped in a fog so fine it felt like the city itself was mourning. And on that quiet morning, Angela passed away. There was no cry, no struggle, just a soft, final breath, a note gentle and invisible. leaving the body like a soul lifted in song. Lily sat beside her the entire night. She didn't cry, she didn't scream. She just held her mother's fragile hand, the same hand that had once guided hers on piano keys, and whispered, "I'll sing, Mom. Even if you're gone, I'll keep singing." The next day the street corner was silent. The microphone lay unplugged. The familiar plastic donation box sat empty, untouched. There was no voice, no song. Passersby slowed. Some stopped, looking around as though expecting to hear a sound they'd come to love. But all that remained was the stillness of absence. Walter still came out of habit, or maybe something deeper. He unfolded his chair, sat down quietly, and laid a single white daisy on the pavement. Beside it, he placed a printed sheet of lyrics, "You are my sunshine." No words were spoken. An elderly woman with silver hair and a cane stood beside him and placed her hand gently over her heart. A man in a business suit joined them, then a third, then a fourth, and in the crisp breeze of that morning, Savannah gave its farewell, not in speeches or songs, but in silence. A tribute that needed no sound. 1 week after Angela's funeral, a small, humble service with only a few close neighbors, Lily returned. In her hands was an old acoustic guitar, recently sent from Nashville. No note, no signature. Just a small velvet ribbon tied around the neck. Engraved on the neck of the guitar was a simple message, to Lily, "Keep singing. The world needs it." This time, Lily didn't stand on the corner to ask for help. There was no donation box. She stood as an answer to her mother, to Walter, to every quiet soul who had stepped into her life and left behind nothing but faith. She took a breath and began to sing, "Bridge Over Troubled Water." It was the song Angela used to hum in the kitchen on rainy days, when the ceiling leaked and life felt too heavy. Lily's voice wasn't powerful. It wasn't trained or perfect, but it carried something far greater. The sound of memory, turned into music, a prayer not in words but in melody. Those who had gathered, many drawn only by a viral video, stood in silent awe. Some wept openly when she reached the line, "I will lay me down." Walter sat in the back. His hand gripped his old wooden cane, knuckles white. Tears clung to his tired eyes, but his gaze was steady. In that moment he no longer saw a child singing out of need. He saw a young artist, giving something back to the world that once tried to take everything from her. From that day forward, Lily became something of a living memory in Savannah. She no longer sang to survive, she sang to remind, to warm hearts, to help others remember that once, on a forgotten street corner in the cold, a little girl had stood there, singing to give her mother just one more day. Walter still came, week after week. He no longer brought a camera, no tea, just himself. He sat quietly now, as if waiting for something he knew would someday arrive, and knowing that until then, Lily would be there, not out of grief but out of promise. She sang for the mother she had lost, for those who once cherished music, and for herself, for the heart that had once been warmed by the soft voice of a mother singing just for her. 1 year after Angela's passing, Lily Mae Carter stood before the largest audience she had ever seen, a grand auditorium, crimson velvet curtains cascading from ceiling to floor, stage lights pouring down like sunlight through stained glass, leaving everything below in shadow. In her trembling hands she held a single folded sheet of paper. On it were the lyrics to "You Are My Sunshine," the last song her mother had ever hummed, from a hospital bed filled with fading strength and enduring love. Lily stepped to the microphone, closed her eyes and sang, not as a child begging for help, but as a young woman answering the world with everything her heart had ever held. And now, the very first song Lily had ever sung on that tiny Savannah street corner was rising again. Only this time, the audience below her wasn't made of passing strangers. They were senators, doctors, musicians, and many wore T-shirts adorned with pink ribbons, gathered not on sidewalks, but beneath crystal chandeliers at Willow Hall in Washington, D.C., the event Voices for Hope, a national musical tribute organized by the National Cancer Association. A clear, steady voice rang out from the Haustine. And now, please welcome Lily Mae Carter, the young girl from Savannah, Georgia, who once sang on the street to save her mother. Today, she sings to bring hope to millions. Lily stepped onto the stage. She carried with her the same acoustic guitar from a year ago, the one that bore the faint but eternal engraving, "Keep singing. The world needs it." She took a deep breath. Then she began to sing, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine," soft, gentle, yet so deep. It felt like the air in the 500-seat auditorium stood still. Each note, each lyric was more than just a melody. They were fragments of memory. The nights she waited for her mother to stir from sleep. The wind-whipped corner where an old man handed her peppermint tea, the tiny microphone resting on rain-damp bricks, and in that stage light, the past didn't return to haunt her. It came to carry her forward. As Lily reached the final words, "Please don't take my sunshine away," the hall fell into a breathtaking silence. Then one person stood, an elderly woman in a floral dress, eyes red with tears. Next, a silver-bearded man in a veteran's uniform. Then another and another. Soon the entire audience stood, not to cheer, not to applaud, but to place their hands over their hearts, in shared wordless understanding. After the performance, a reporter stepped up and asked, "Lily, how does it feel to sing before the entire nation?" She smiled softly and said, "I didn't really think about that. I was just thinking about my mom." A week later, an envelope arrived. It bore the seal of the American Folk Music Academy. Inside was a formal letter and a handwritten note. "Your voice is a bridge between generations. We want to help you carry it farther." It was signed by Clara Jensen, a respected vocal instructor who had quietly attended Lily's performance as a guest judge. At the bottom of the page, Clara had written, "Lily, voices like yours don't need to be taught how to touch hearts. You only need a place where that voice can continue to rise." And so, Lily left Savannah on a quiet night bus. She carried little more than a worn suitcase, her beloved guitar, and a hand-stitched handkerchief with her name, embroidered by her mother's fading hands. The seat beside her was empty. Walter no longer sat with her. He had passed away peacefully in his sleep that past winter. But before he left, he had written her a note, and left behind the old video camera, the same one that had captured her first song. The note read, "Dear girl, this old man was never good at goodbyes, but if you're still singing, then I'm still alive in every note. Keep going, and never think you're singing alone." Alone, 3 years later, a community music center was born in Savannah, named Angela's Voice. It became a sanctuary where Lily taught music, freely, lovingly, to children from struggling backgrounds. No fancy microphones, no booming speakers, just a plastic chair, a guitar, and a quiet whisper, "Sing, sweetheart, sing for Mom." And so the story didn't end with tears, but with echoes, soft, steady, and still rising. A voice that once began on a lonely street corner, nurtured by unconditional love, had blossomed into a steady light, shining in the hearts of those who had lost, those who had felt alone, those who longed for something simple and beautiful. The sunshine never left. It simply found a new way to shine. Thus closes the story of Lily Mae Carter, a young girl who once sang in the wind to hold on to her mother's life, now lighting hearts around the world with that same voice. From silent sorrow to a radiant stage, from loss to hope, she made the world pause and listen to what truly matters: love and quiet strength. If this story touched you even for a moment, please leave a few words in the comments below. It may be the smallest act, but it is the most sincere way to help preserve the beauty that's slowly being forgotten. Don't forget to like and subscribe, so whenever the world feels too loud, you'll have a place to return, where stories like Lily's are still being told. We'll see you again on the next journey, where love remains gentle, quiet, but never fading.